This is Steve Young for the Co-Roundtable. So I want to have a few words with you, for you, about wealth. So what do we do with wealth? Is wealth a good thing? Is wealth a bad thing? But more importantly, what do we do with it? And of course, those of us who've had some experience with the Christian New Testament know there's a certain cynicism in the New Testament about the wealthy. Are they really going to get into heaven? If they spend too much time serving mammon, can they also serve God? But very recently, I'd say very recently, given the span of the 200 years of wealth creation under capitalism, which is a staggering success. I mean, a staggering amount of wealth has been created in the last 200 years compared to the previous, 5,000? But a concern that comes with wealth, because of the scale of the new wealth, a growing concern. There's always been jealousy of elites, wealthy aristocrats, relatively speaking. But the wealthy aristocrats in the 1300s, did not have gas stoves or hot and cold running water or a lot of other things, or medicines, right? What do we do about the equality or inequality of wealth in today's world? You may have seen the statistics where, and I don't remember them offhand, but 670 multi-billionaires have more wealth than the bottom 50% of humanity. Even though the bottom 50% of humanity today is living better than it did 100 years ago, the contrast between our median, between the lowest and the very top, is absolutely stark. And we've created a system where it seems that people who become wealthy get wealthier. As was said by the early socialists, the rich get richer and the poor stay poor. Very interestingly, the Joseph Biden administration in the United States has come up with a proposal which directly confronts the challenge of what the wealthy owe to us, to society, to the world, to whatever, in terms of taxing their wealth. In order to take a share of their wealth and, if you will, socializing it, taking it out of their hands, giving it into some form of public administration where it is spent on quote-unquote public goods, or goods for the phrase many Americans use is infrastructure investment, right? It's a public good. It's subsidizing poorer people, it's creating infrastructure, things like that. Well, then the question then becomes, what's a fair tax? How do you actually tax wealth? And then things become really quite interesting because wealth exists in different forms. If I make a personal decision that my wealth is in gold bars, which I keep in a box in my basement, how are you going to tax me? Am I going to have to shave off a little bit of each bar, put it in a little box and send it off to my government? That's illiquid wealth. Now, if I decided to put all my wealth into shares of stock, equity stock in a market, and they have a price and I can sell them in 30 seconds or in 10 nanoseconds, that's easy. The government says, Steve, you've got $10 billion worth of stock. We want $1 million. So I tell my broker, sell off $1 million, convert it to cash, and I send cash to the government. But then there's another tricky question here on what is the real value of my stock? There's a market value today. Let's say it's 10 cents a share. Well, is that as solid and as reliable as a gold bar? Probably not. What if it's overvalued? What if it's undervalued? What is going to happen to the incentive for people if we tax wealth in various ways? My thinking is that these issues need a lot of thought and reflection, but that there is always a question of what do wealthy people owe, in some sense, to society. Even Andrew Carnegie in the late 19th century had this notion of you got to pay back something or other. We at the Co-Roundtable pulled together, we haven't done much with it, I'm now thinking maybe we should, I'd like to hear from you, put together a set of moral and ethical principles for owners of wealth, which is saying if you're a moral person, if you're an ethical person, and you're sitting on, if you're a Mark Zuckerberg or a Jeff Bezos, or I don't know if I should say this, if you're a Russian oligarch, or a Chinese billionaire, what should you do? Do you have some sort of moral, internal obligation, the paying attention to God's side rather than the mammon side? I would say yes, we do. And we probably ought to be thinking more about this.